My parents came to this country with very little. My dad came to this country with less than $100, didn't speak the language, didn't know the people, didn't know the culture, and had to find a way to make it work. So growing up, I didn't have any sort of formal entrepreneurship education. I was discouraged from being an entrepreneur. I was discouraged from going out and getting financial education. I was told not to do this dumb thing called investing. I was told to go to school, study hard, get good grades, and become a doctor. When in reality, if we're speaking just financially, when you talk about just the numbers, going to school to get good grades, that way you can spend all of your time working hard at a job, whether it's a doctor or whether it's at McDonald's, is one of the worst ways to take care of yourself financially, and you'll see why. There are 3 things that you need to focus on if you want to become financially, that's the key word here, is if you want to become financially successful. The first thing you have to master is your mindset, because many of us have a limited, scarcity, broke, poor mindset, where for one, we live in this world where we think there is a limitation as to how much we can earn or how much we can accumulate or how much money we can get, when in reality there is a lot of money in the world. I'm sure we all know somebody like this. I'm sure you know somebody like this. When somebody else gets money, when somebody else becomes successful, you get jealous, you get angry, you get envious. Why did this person do it? They must have done something bad. They must have done something sketchy. They must have done something evil, or that money is bad. Don't worry about money because we can't figure out how they did it. And this is one of those things where now you have to flip the script. And instead of hating the success, start learning how the success works. And the interesting thing is, many times we have this deep rooted in our mind where when we see somebody else become successful, we start to come up with excuses or reasons as to how they came up with it, because most of us don't grow up with very rich parents who can instill this growth, success, abundance mindset. So we grow up with this idea of thinking that if somebody else does it, they must have done something bad, when in reality that same mindset is what's holding so many people back from achieving anything, because we start hating success instead of asking how somebody did it. When you start hating the success, it's going to be very difficult for you to go out and actually achieve anything yourself, because you keep hating when somebody else does it. So you have to start appreciating and start asking the question why, because as soon as you start asking the question why, you start asking the question how did they do it? Why did they achieve it? How did they do it? And this is where now you can start to dig deeper and start to learn and start to appreciate and start to celebrate wins, because you'll start to realize there's a lot of money in the world. There's a lot of money out there. And just because somebody else made $1, somebody else made $1 million, somebody else made 100 million, somebody else made 1 billion, it's not going to stop you from achieving all the success that you want, because our system with our central banks, with our government, is printing tons and tons and tons of dollars, and they're injecting it into our economy. So your goal should not be to hate on what other people do, but rather figure out how you can attract just a little piece of this huge pie of dollars to your pocket. And now how do you do that? Well, now going back to the mindset, it's developing that growth mindset. Because when somebody told me this, or I heard something related to this a number of years ago, and I thought it was impossible, but somebody was talking about, now if you have a pie, because they were talking about how you can live below your means and how to use your money the right way. And if you earn $50,000 a year, there's 2 things that you can do if you want to put money aside to build wealth. One thing that you can do is you can try to squeeze more pennies out of your pie. So if you make $50,000 a year and you put aside $10,000 a year for your savings and your investments, now you might say, I really like this idea of saving and investing. I like the wealth that I'm building from my investments, because I think we all know now, if you've been subscribed to my channel, that the way that you become successful financially is by investing your money. So now you're making 50 grand, you're putting aside 10 grand, and you're like, I love this idea of investing. Let me get more aggressive. Let me put more money aside to investing. So what do you do? Well, what that looks like financially is that now you're making $50,000 a year, and now instead of putting aside $10,000, you're going to work to put aside $20,000. Now, you've doubled the amount of money you're putting aside for your investments, you double the money you put aside for your savings, but now you have to live smaller. Now, this is great to do in the short term, but you keep limiting your lifestyle. You're trying to squeeze more pennies out of a limited pie, where now it's about the abundance mindset, where now how do you ask yourself, how do you go from this $50,000 a year pie to $500,000 a year? Now, if you do the same thing, instead of putting aside the $10,000 a year for your savings and your investments, now you can put aside $100,000 a year for your savings and your investments. You're living off of the same percentage. You're putting aside 20% of your income in both instances. But in the second, when you put aside $100,000 a year, $100,000 a year is a whole lot more than $10,000 a year, even though you're still living off of 80% of your income. But now you have $400,000 a year to live off of, while you can put aside 20%, which is now 100 grand for your investments and your savings. Now, when you hear that, you're gonna say, Jaspreet, how in the world am I gonna go from 50 grand to $500,000 a year? And you're right, it's not gonna be easy. It's gonna take time, but it is possible if you have the right mindset. So what does that mean? The first thing is you gotta believe that you can do it. Because if you say, it's impossible for somebody like me, it's impossible for somebody from my background, it's impossible for somebody with my degree, it's impossible for somebody with my college education, it's impossible for somebody with my lack of education to go out and do this, then I guarantee it, it's gonna be impossible for you. But if you think it's possible, if you believe it's possible, then the next thing you're gonna do is you're gonna start reading books. Then maybe you buy a class. Then maybe you go out and try something. And you're gonna do this and you're gonna fail, and then you're gonna feel defeated, and then you're gonna watch more YouTube videos, and then you're gonna do it again and again and again. And eventually you're gonna start seeing a growth in your income. And you're gonna start seeing a growth in how you're earning your money. It doesn't matter where you come from. It doesn't matter what your degree is. It doesn't matter what your background is. But you'll start doing something different if that's what you want. But it all starts with that mindset. And that means you have to believe it's possible for you. And that means that you have to start thinking a little bit different. It means you have to start thinking a little bit bigger. Because if you keep thinking small, you're going to keep putting limitations on yourself. There are enough cynics and enough haters on the internet and in the world. They don't do any good. They're going to keep hating. They're going to keep talking about how it's not possible. They're going to keep talking about all the excuses and all the complaints about how it's so hard for them. But if you keep doing what everybody else does, because the majority of people are going to fall into the cynic and hater mindset, if you keep doing what they do, you're going to end up like them, which is hating, being cynical, and being broke. But it requires you to think a little bit different and start seeing what's possible. That way you can start making different decisions. And if you keep hating the success, it is going to be impossible for you to achieve that success yourself, where you have to now change that mindset. There was a saying that I heard which said, when you don't know your own limitations, nothing's going to stop you from going out and actually achieving them. Because when you think it's impossible for you, you create these limitations for yourself, saying that somebody like me can't do it, somebody from my background can't do it. When you put these limitations out there, it is going to be impossible for you to go out and actually do something, because you've already created a limitation for yourself. So you have to stop giving yourself these limitations and start thinking a little bit bigger. Even when I started this YouTube channel, I know I did the same thing. Now, I have been notorious since I was young to think big. And I was always told, stop thinking like that. You're thinking too big. Stop dreaming so much. But even with that mindset, somebody who always thought big, I put these own limitations on myself when I started my YouTube channel. I remember joking around with my friends that if my YouTube channel ever hit 100,000 subscribers, that I made it. That it's everything that I could imagine for a financial channel. If my channel ever hit 1 million subscribers, that I would just shut down my channel, because that's impossible, that it would never happen. Now here we are today with the Minority Mindset YouTube channel having even more than 1 million subscribers. And this is coming from somebody who created this whole idea of thinking big. I talk about this idea of thinking big. I've always thought big, yet here I was creating limitations on myself. And so if you put limitations on yourself, you're going to stop yourself from thinking bigger. And if you stop yourself from thinking bigger, you're going to stop working for something bigger. And this is where that mindset is so important. That's why I call everything that I do myself the minority mindset, because all success starts with your mindset. If you don't have the right mindset, I can guarantee you it is going to be impossible for you to succeed. If you enjoyed this short clip from my longer videos, here's another clip that I think you'll love. And while you're at it, if you're interested in learning more about how to start generating passive income, our team put together an amazing guide on how to start generating passive income for free. All you got to do is click that button right over there. Thank you for watching, and as always, keep hustling.